Hey everybody, it's that time of year again. We're doing a 2024 Warframe tier list. Before we actually get to the rankings though, I have two things for you guys. Firstly, the rules for this tier list. Helmet is going to be considered here. Being such a large part of the game, I feel that it would be weird to not include it when almost every single build in the game utilizes one, and the build variety it opens up is just incredible. I would try to keep talk about it to a minimum, but in some cases it really does boost the frame up a tier or so, and I will be sure to mention that. I also will not be considering level cap or anything past the couple hour mark, as almost no one, myself included, actually does that. Tier wise, S tier is going to be split into two sections. One for frames that are just so strong they work in any area of the game incredibly well, can be played at any level to great success, and have little to no issues with their kit. And the second containing almost only loot frames or those that expedite or make a mission so much more rewarding / efficient that you should always be using them. Warframe is a grind game at its core, and loot frames accelerating the main loop that is the game are undeniably very strong, enough for me to outline all of this at least. Not playing one of these frames in a mission is actively hindering yourself in terms of that aspect. Now, how strong are some of these frames besides looting? Well, most of them are actually quite good, but I will be ranking frames that do fall into this category separately in both manners, just mentioning them at the beginning of their ranking. A tier will be split into two with A+ and A-. A lot of Warframes do fit into the A tier, which is a good thing, yet there are clearly some that are better than those below A tier, but not some that would fit within a generalized A tier. Because of that, there will be a distinction, and when looking at the actual tier list itself, the closer a frame is to the actual tier marking on the left over here, is how I would rank them against everything else within their category. B tier frames struggle a little bit with just their base kits and aren't as widely applicable to most everything in the game as upper tier frames, but with the right builds and missions, they too can succeed relatively well. C tier Warframes have some power, as it is rare in Warframe to find characters that are just completely useless, but they could also definitely benefit from some changes, and in my opinion, are not worth playing in most any scenario. D tier frames are in desperate need of changes with little to no redeeming qualities within their kit and require far too much to actually make function. Luckily, there are practically no Warframes this bad, which is a good thing. F tier won't be used here. No frames fit the bill of what I would call F tier, and putting them here would just be a meme, when in reality, all Warframes can be played with varying levels of success. Finally, there will be an unranked tier for Warframes that I admittedly do not know enough about to accurately place. There are a few frames in this category, and it mostly revolves around those with more complex kits that you really need to play to get a feel for. I will give an uneducated ranking on them, but overall we'll be placing them into the unranked tier. Next, a quick little message. This is my tier list video, that while I am trying to keep it as objective as possible, some subjectivity is going to leak in regardless. I promise I am doing my best to view these frames within a vacuum, and just because your favorite frame may not rest in what rank you think it deserves, doesn't completely invalidate that opinion. The beauty of Warframe is that pretty much every frame can be played successfully. So again, understand this is me trying to be as objective as possible, and I apologize for any subjectivity, but it is my tier list. On a far more exciting note, if you're like me and just don't want to wait until Warframe mobile releases, well, why do that when you could just be playing this game instead? You think that Warframe's 55 characters is a lot? Yeah, you ain't seen anything yet. With over 800 completely unique champions and a couple billion different ways to customize them, it's a good thing I don't have to rank all of them, cause it would take forever. With the most recent Cursed City update and the ongoing Christmas story event, Raid has more content than ever with 100 stages of the brand new Doom Tower, spectacles of boss fights, and it's just too much to list, to be honest. My favorite feature has to be the PvP. I'm pretty competitive, so absolutely blasting other players is a level of fun that cannot be understated. Raid is also currently celebrating the festive season. This month, get involved in Raid's Christmas story. You have a chance to win both in-game and real-life prizes, ranging from epic and legendary champions to even Amazon gift cards. All you need to do to join the event is head to the website shown on screen right now, which is linked in the description. I've even got my own clan you can also join right now by scanning the QR code currently on screen or by clicking my link in my description. My link will give you two epic champions. First is Lightsworn, a very strong epic champion, and Juliana, available at level 15, another epic champion as well, and a fantastic boss killer. Both are a great mix of offense and defense that makes Saren look lame in comparison. Once you're in, my clan name is Order of Ki, spelt as shown, and if you ever see me online, shoot me a message and let's play some. In my short experience with Raid, it has become one of my favorite games that I have ever played. Surely it will become one of yours too, so don't miss out on the best time to join. I hope to see you there soon. Ashe opens up our tier list with a fairly odd ranking. Both Ashe's 1 and 3 are fairly mediocre and in need of tune-ups, while his 2 and passive are pretty good, albeit with the former requiring an augment for any decent usage. The focus of his kit, Bladestorm, is a great ability, but it suffers from Warframe being a horde shooter in most situations. Bladestorm is very powerful, but slow and a bit clunky to cast sometimes. Overall, Ashe is not a bad Warframe, but suffers from his 1 doing absolutely nothing useful even with the augment, and his 4 being an ability based on a different time in Warframe. B tier. Atlas is an interesting frame, having his first be a rare pseudo-exalted ability, with the rest of his kit leaving a lot to be desired. Ignoring Landslide, Atlas's 2 is mostly useless, his 3 has a niche application of extra loot and codex scanning, while his 4 is hilariously bad. Quite possibly the only saving grace is that Landslide currently is very strong. I say currently as with the Gen 2 Incarnate Evo perks applying flat CC towards pseudos, Landslide got massively buffed. With the removal of this and some other tech, he wouldn't be nearly as good, though in his current state, Landslide is hard carrying and places Atlas within the B tier. Banshee on the other hand possesses some of the strongest damage abilities within the game with a bit of a weak base. Sonic Boom with the augment is a very strong armor strip and in combination with Sonar is just an absurd level of damage you won't ever really need. Mainly people use this in combination with Silence on Banshee, which is another amazing ability. Survivability wise, she struggles a little bit without Helmet and with is just fine. We don't talk about that 4th ability though, one of the easiest Helmet slots in the game. For the purposes of killing priority targets or liches very easily, Banshee is fantastic and just a solid Warframe in a lot of other areas, namely weapon leveling with the Silence Augment. A-. Baruuk is next with a very interesting ranking in my opinion, revolving almost entirely around his 4th, Serene Storm, which isn't a bad thing because yeah, it's pretty broken, but has a unique limiter to it. Requiring you to lower your restraint constantly to even use his 4th makes Baruuk almost non-functional on base star chart for a lot of missions, and some on Steel Path due to the lack of enemies. When you do get his 4th rolling, nothing can stop him, the insane DR stacking he has from almost every ability and the monstrous damage is very powerful, but his lack of versatility across multiple game modes keeps him from the coveted S tier as just an A-. Caliban. I wish you were better, but unfortunately, you aren't. Caliban's entire kit has issues so small yet so massively impactful that it's crazy to me they haven't changed them. His passive doesn't stack with adaptation, making it effectively useless. Razor Gyre is just awful, while Sentient Wrath suffers from something no ability in Warframe should ever have, an enemy cap. Why does that exist? I do not understand it. Lethal Progeny's AI spawns are terrible, but the shield generation they give could at least be slightly useful if it worked like Protea's shield satellites, in that their regen was constant, not waiting until Caliban already has shields to give him more, which is, again, terrible. Fusion Strike is actually pretty fire, but one good ability in a kit of garbage, mostly, isn't enough of a saving grace to get him out of D tier. Please, DE, buff Caliban. Keeping up the disappointments, Chroma comes up next, and I'll just start off with saying D tier in terms of playing almost every piece of content in the game, with an introduction to our separate quote-unquote S tier of loot/optimization frames. Chroma gives double credits. Where is this useful? Profit Taker and nobody else comes close. Ignoring the Profit Taker usage, Chroma fails at both his portrayed identity as a frame, being a dragon, and just in general day-to-day playing. Elemental Ward is a cool ability with great usage on other frames, but on his base kit, leaves some to be desired. I would honestly gun for a Chroma rework over many other frames because he has the opportunity to be so cool and really dig into that dragon identity, but right now, he has trouble getting his wings off the ground. D tier for everything but Profit Taker. A newer Warframe and definitely one of my favorites is Citrine. Citrine is the best support in the game in my opinion, giving herself and all of her teammates health regen, damage reduction, energy and health orbs, status chance, and red crits. That's a hell of a lot for a frame to do, and Citrine executes all of it very well while being very simple to play. She also has the ability to be modded in very unique ways with Archon mods and a lot of the new Archon shards as well. Overall, Citrine may be simple, but her power is undeniably very high, garnering her the first A+. And again, with a newer frame, we have Dagath. I feel like most underestimate the power of Dagath, having almost every single ability in her kit spread viral. The de facto best status around currently at the levels they do is very strong, with her 2 having a unique version of, say, damage doubling. An overlooked detail on Doom is that once enough damage is dealt to the target to be lethal, the Doom Scythe will automatically strike as true damage, similar to Kullervo's Curse, and better in some situations. Also possessing a very strong nuke ability in her 4th and an odd but present method of survivability in her 3rd, which also buffs her weapon's crit damage massively. Yeah, Dagath is a killer. A+. Ember is disappointing. I never played during her World on Fire era, but oh how much I wish I did. Currently, her kit involves too much micromanaging of the immolation meter, which comes with an annoying level of inconsistency. While maximum DR? Well, don't use her 3, but then you have no armor strip, something her 4th really needs, and your energy will disappear. If you actually want the armor strip, then you need to have it at max immolation, and you get the point. Her 1 is just the heat version of Volt Shock, something common a lot of the older frames share, where their first ability is literally just their theme, but they throw it. When Fire Blast does even work, it requires both enemies to be within line of sight and knockdownable. Is that even a word? Anyways, in the one place Ember might shine, ESO, you can't spam cast 4th abilities, so she is again useless there. Overall, disappointing for a frame that used to be, from the looks of it, really damn good. C tier. Equinox is thematically one of my favorite frames, and it really makes me wish that you could mod both forms separately. Oh how one can dream. In her current state though, both forms offer a really solid set of abilities that can be applied to many areas in the game for good success. What really makes me love Equinox though is Terrify and main nuking. Now, this is just one combination and arguably not enough to put her into S tier purely off of that alone, but it is one of the strongest builds in the entire game. Past that, she has great crowd control and survivability, with some awesome team buff aspects as well. Overall, a great frame that if both forms had different configs able to be used at once, would be played so much more, by me especially. A+. Excalibur is the poster boy of Warframe, and in that regard, I think he's the best at being basic, fun, and strong, but not too strong. On base star chart, Excalibur and especially Exalted Blade just roll through everything, and that idea is really reinforced once you get Umbra. He does struggle some on Steel Path, but I don't really see much of an issue with it. He just requires a decent amount of investment to make work there. Simple yet strong. There's not much else I could ask for him. Just a good Warframe. B tier. Frost. This one is tough. His 1, 2, and 3 are all awful, borderline trolling tools. But that 4th ability and the augments for it, wow. There's a reason I called him a one-trick pony in the Protea video, because he is the definition of that statement. Avalanche does so much for one ability that it single-handedly carries Frost from what would otherwise be a D tier placement to B tier. It's that good. I can't offer much commentary on what I think they should do with him, but I'm open to hearing what y'all have to say about him. But again, B tier. Gara. Damn, what an underrated Warframe. Gara is one of the few examples of perfectly synergistic frames. All of her abilities do something nice on their own, yet when combined together, create the absurdity that is her kit. Infinitely stacking damage with 90% DR, a great DPS tool in her pseudo exalt, crowd control and energy generation with a large nuke on top of it. As a support frame, she also excels too, being able to give her teammates and even some defensive objects a portion of her DR, something seldom seen. Gara is an easy A+. Something you'll see is that pretty much every frame whose name begins with a G is incredibly good, with Garuda coming next, grabbing the first placement within the S tier on this list. Garuda's kit has it all: infinite energy generation, a large AoE nuke, crazy health regen, or a great helmet slot, and Seeking Talons is just one of the best abilities in the game. Not to mention her passive, which also gives another 100% multiplicative damage towards anything, weapons or abilities, that works separately from even Roar and Bane mod multiplication. Garuda is a monster who can work well in every area of the game. Easy S tier. Adhering to what I said before, Gauss is up next, and as you expected, this is an easy S as well. Like Gara, every ability within his kit works well on its own, but when combined together, has some extra very powerful synergies. Invulnerability rivaling the likes of Revenant with some insane movement, grouping, AoE nuking, energy generation, the list goes on and on. Gauss is one of my favorite warframes for a great reason, S tier. Grendel is very strong after his rework late last year, having the full nourish ability in his base kit with 2 different methods of armor strip. While it is a little disappointing he cannot eat entire maps anymore, his armor stacking mechanic from doing so more than makes up for it. A-. Gyre is a tough frame to rate, as with one specific helmet ability, and pretty much only that one, converts her into an absolute monster, but the absence of it leaves a lot to be desired. I did say that I would be considering helmet in this list, and Pillage does enough for Gyre to bring her up to an A-. It is just a very specific rating, but with her third's energy regen and Rotor Swell's crazy damage, alongside an armor strip, and being, the red crit ability frame, Gyre is a blast and very fun to play. A-. Harrow is a weapons platform through and through with the ability to support his team, yet being immensely selfish while doing so. Durable requires you to get kills to generate energy, which is annoying. There is an augment that allows players to trigger his 2 and 3 off of their own kills, but it requires them to be on chained enemies from his 1, which in my opinion has a really bad and annoying cast. Speaking of his 1, it's just pillage but worse in every way, with the only possible application being for easy incarnate charging, but that is seldom something useful enough to subsume one specific ability for, or even use it on Harrow. Though to stray away from the negativity, the weapon buffs that he gives are good, and with some survivability built in, he's a solid warframe. B tier. Hildryn. Pillage is really the only good ability she has within her kit, and it's a subsume, which isn't a good thing. Balefires are weak and have a very annoying shield requirement, while Haven serves to drain it as fast as possible. Its buffs are nice, giving your teammates a very strong shield gate, but its range is determined by range, while Pillage's is determined by duration, which makes her a very stat-hungry frame, as she wants a lot of everything to be able to function. Her 4th is also absolute dog, please change this. Hildryn is Pillage the frame, and when that can be put on everyone else, it's less of a positive than you'd might think, but enough to garner her a very low B. Hydroid. Wow, what a glow up. From undeniably the worst frame in the game to possibly one of the strongest, having some completely insane ability DPS strats and being a crazy weapons platform for hybrid or even pure status weapons, I recommend Hydroid to literally everyone. Who would have thought? Off of just his kit alone, he deserves the S tier, but with Pilfering Swarm giving him a coveted looting ability, he also ranks in the S tier in terms of efficiency and optimization. Absolutely love this frame now, and on the complete opposite of the spectrum, we have Inaros. Inaros is disappointing. What else can I say? None of his abilities realistically do anything. I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye is laughably bad, and his potential one use of being a weapons platform who doesn't need to worry about abilities is just completely diminished by the existence of other frames like Zephyr, Revenant, and Gauss who actually do meaningful things even with rare casting. While he is usable and doesn't deserve the tier of F, he is the worst frame in the game by far. Low D tier. Ivara is painfully average. Artemis Bow is strong, there's no denying that, but the main thing you'll see her being used for is AFK farming, which is less of a testament to her kit strength and just Warframe as a game being manipulated. Her arrows are largely useless. Prowl is an annoying ability that requires a lot of workaround to make you feel even remotely good, and Navigator is just kind of a meme. Artemis Bow does carry though and nabs her a low B tier. Khora will follow with what everyone expected, an easy S tier in both gameplay and optimization. Whipclaw is one of the strongest abilities in the game, and Snare is arguably the best grouping tool available, and her 4th is a great crowd control ability and with its augment, gives you extra loot. Her 3 may be terrible, but in the helmet meta we live in, that's no issue with something like Blackcast Hunt giving her practical immortality. Khora's a beast. Enough said. S tier. The K-frames really do be pulling out with Kullervo up next also garnering an S tier. Tier 3 and up red crits on any melee, especially with the inclusion of Tennokai and Arcanes is nothing to laugh at with Recompense giving great survivability with 2 separate gates. Collective Curse is Collective Curse. Everyone wanted this to be his helmet, and I don't think you understand just how broken it would be if that was the case, as it may be the strongest ability in the game. Even without helmeting over his fort, it too is very strong. One of the best nukes with great survivability and some nasty weapon buffs. S tier. Lavos is the first frame I will be placing into the unranked category, as I just do not know enough about the intricacies of his kit to accurately place him. Though I will say that without the existence of this tier, I'd be inclined to give him a C. He could use some QOL, and that queuing an element should withhold for abilities instead of having it immediately disappear after one cast, but I am ultimately placing him unranked. Limbo is a frame that I also would have placed into this category if I had not spent a lot of time looking into him before doing this list. Limbo is without a doubt one of the more complex frames within the game, and as a side effect of that, the player behind Limbo is incredibly important in dictating their rank, varying it wildly. Completely ignoring the player though, I think that Limbo is okay, just not the best in any of the categories of what he does. There is the factor of a bad Limbo potentially making a mission impossible to do for anyone else, but I've seen things that sort of contradict this lately. Regardless though, I believe Limbo fits within the C tier with the potential to be low A or high B, depending heavily on the player behind him. Loki is another hard frame to rank because every single ability in his kit, besides his 2, is absolutely useless in 99% of the game. Yes, I know you can bounty speedrun on the planes with him, hence the 99%. But his 2 is one of the strongest survivability options in the game, because how do you beat pure invisibility? You just don't. This makes ranking Loki very hard, as he really can't die if you pay attention to your timer, but the rest of his kit is so abysmally bad. This is a very similar situation to Frost, where he was saved by one very good ability, but I'm going to put him in low B tier, though an argument could be made for C tier. Mag is very good, no doubt about that. Fantastic grouping, Magnetize being a sphere of pure destruction, very easy shield gating, and mass armor strip. That is pretty much every wanted quality in a Warframe, all in a starter frame at that. I can't recommend Mag enough, and she easily breaks into the S tier. Absolutely amazing frame. Mesa will follow in Mag's footsteps, also garnering a place within the S tier. This one may be slightly controversial, but with the amount of buffs that she has gotten with the recent updates, I firmly believe that she rests among the top. One of the highest damage reduction values in Shadow Shield, and in my opinion, the best crowd control ability in the game, and regulators are just regulators. S tier. Mirage is a very strong weapons platform frame with Hall of Mirrors and Eclipse being some of the most potent buffs around. But I don't think I am wrong in saying that she falls behind many of the other current top weapons platforms, namely Hydroid and Citrine. These buffs are still very strong, but I feel like many new additions to Warframe have power crept her down from an A+ to low A-. Eclipse also just functions so annoyingly. Please change. As expected, Nekros will fit into the S tier of optimization and efficiency, but in terms of actual gameplay, Nekros puts up a good fight. Having one of the best armor strips within his base kit and Desecrate being fantastic for energy management through Equilibrium, even ignoring the additional loot aspect with his 1 and 4 being more niche, but with the right build, giving him an army of shadows so strong they outdamage even Nekros himself. All of this warrants a solid A-. Nezha, the Bane of Region Chat, is another very strong frame with a great tanking ability in Warding Halo, a unique damage multiplier with some slightly annoying mechanics, and his 1 and 4 providing status cleanse, some great crowd control, and overall just being a very simple yet powerful warframe. A-. Nidus is our next frame in the unranked category. I have practically zero playtime on Nidus, and what comes with that is me really not understanding his kit. I just haven't played him at all. Ignoring my limited knowledge of him, I would say somewhere around a B, but I really cannot comment on him. Unranked. Nova is up next, and within optimization and efficiency, garners an S tier. Molecular Prime speeding or slowing enemies is just too valuable to pass up for a lot of missions, and with its added damage vulnerability, is just quite strong. Besides that, she has a great tanking ability with the Augment though, a fun DPS tool, and fantastic movement. Nova is a great warframe, one that I would recommend to most all players. A+. Nyx is disappointing. I do not understand what people really get out of playing Nyx, as she has a lame first ability. Her second, which defense strips, is not permanent and only targets 6 enemies at once. 6 in a horde shooter like Warframe is nothing. Chaos is really her only good ability, and even then doesn't do anything special that Radiation doesn't do as a status. Her 4th has some unique builds with the augment, but all in all, Nyx is just really not that good. C tier. Oberon is similarly disappointing as he has so much potential, but the synergies within his kit are quite annoying. Personally, I believe that just a number tune-up and the untying of armor strip from his 2 and 4 would be great, but it may extend a little bit beyond that. Renewal is a strong 3rd ability that kind of nukes his energy economy without substantial building towards it, and Smite is really only useful with its augment. Oberon could be great. I'd love to rank him higher, but I just can't justify it. C tier. Octavia is the easiest frame to rank on this list, surprising absolutely nobody with an S tier. Even with that rank though, I do not recommend Octavia to anyone. She will make you dislike the game. One of the most boring frames has one of the strongest kits. It's just sad. Such a cool backing like her with the Manticore has potential to be so fun and cool, and somehow it just gets turned into throw down all of her abilities and then spam crouch, which is just, again, lame. S tier, but don't play her. Protea is arguably one of the strongest warframes in the game, only missing a looting ability in which if she had one, would be at the top of everyone's list. Artillery scales its damage faster and stronger than most every other frame. Her 1 is possibly the best survivability tool in the game with a fantastic damage counterpart to add. Dispensary is great for support, and while traditionally helmet off, Temporal Anchor is cool and sees some usage with its augment. Protea is about as easy as an S tier could get. Our newest warframe, Corvex, has 2 really great abilities with 2 very mediocre ones. His 3 provides only status resistance, which is just awful, especially with him being a health tank focused warframe and not having any other aspects of his kit to help with that. Seriously, they couldn't have just given him 90% DR on his 3rd as well? The pillars are kind of a meme, I will say. Don't see what usage they really have, and his 2 and 4 are great. With some slight changes, or maybe just a really powerful augment, Corvex could shoot up another tier, but I think he rests firmly in the B tier. Revenant. As sad as it makes me to say, Revenant is an S tier warframe. Being absolutely unkillable and having the ability to one-shot most any enemy in the game just cannot be understated. That's really good. Is Revenant Octavia levels of boring? Yes, but for the same reason that Octavia is S tier, so is Revenant. They just make the game so easy. Any player can pick up Revenant and complete any level of content in the game easily. S tier, unfortunately. Rhino comes up next, and this might be a little bit controversial, but I invite you to go check out my friend Nova Umbral's Rhino is the most overpowered warframe video, as while I disagree with that statement, Rhino is still really, really good. Iron Skin only gets better with every update, and with melee fortification, it's possible that counter can get millions higher than it currently does. Roar is Roar. What else do I need to say? Stomp is one of the few CC abilities to affect nearly every unit in the game. A very strong frame that can be achieved this early deserves the S tier. Like Rhino's Iron Skin, Citrine just gets even more broken every update, especially now with the introduction of Emerald Shards for full armor stripping on her kit. Probably the best weapons platform in the game with Toxic Lash and her augments alongside being a disgusting nuke frame for Steel Path or ESO and the likes. Citrine has been reworked over 13 times, and it seems they just can't stop buffing her anyways. S tier. Sevagoth gets mostly relegated to the Gloom frame, being subsumed more rather than played, I'd suspect. But that whole philosophy is really odd to me. Sevagoth has Gloom in his base kit. Reap and Sow are a very interesting nuke, and even more so the augment grants flat CC to anything, which is very strong. All things considered, I think that Sevagoth gets a bad rep in the community, and like Ureli, it is unwarranted. A very high B tier. Styanax is probably the easiest warframe to pick up and have really good success in any area. Free energy regen and a threat level increase, making him good for defense. Tharro's Strike being in competition for the best defense strip in the game, and healing. A good grouping ability that is just really fun, and we can't ignore his fort for the DPS machine that it is, also being nuts survivability with its augment. Unfortunately, he does happen to be locked behind one of the longest time gates in the game, but that doesn't change his power. Love this frame, S tier. Titania is the queen of speedrunning, and within optimization or efficiency, garners an S tier, being the de facto best warframe for doing so. Besides that though, I really don't think her kit holds up all that well. Her first 3 abilities don't really do anything useful, and Dex Pixia are a strong set of exalted weapons, but are annoying to use due to the immense precision required on them. Though really, her speed and ability to helmet on stuff like Thermal Sunder gives her an A-, albeit a low one. Trinity is one of the most power-crept warframes in the game. It's not even funny anymore, I just feel bad when I look at her. It does pain me to say it, but Trinity is D tier. There really is just no use for her kit anywhere, and when other frames replace her entirely, even mods, it's just sad. Valkyrie is relevant mainly because of her 4th, with the rest of her kit being pretty bad or just better on other frames. Hint hint Warcry. Why does it give you armor if she's invincible? Regardless, Hysteria can be really strong if you just spam slide attacks and not much else. She is just a very one-note frame with nothing really special, and a lame kit even considering the strength of Hysteria. C tier. Vauban will be placed into the unranked tier as I again just do not know enough about him to accurately place him. A very uneducated ranking though from me would place him in the high C tier or low B tier. Vault in terms of optimization and efficiency is without a doubt S tier, but in all other aspects of the game, he still represents a very strong option. Great for speedrunning, an awesome nuke, and now a good weapons buff ability is a lot to get in one frame's kit. Though his one is very similar to other release frames as I said earlier, where they just take whatever their theme is and then throw it, its augment is quite good, giving a lot of electric damage, a strong status lately. A+ for Vault. Varuna will be our last frame in the unranked tier. Even being a more recent frame, and me having a slight understanding of her kit, there really is just a lot of intricacies here that I do not have the time to learn yet, and I just don't feel right ranking her without truly understanding those things. Ignoring that, I think that she'd get an A, but again, unranked. Wisp is in a lot of people's eyes the best support Warframe has to offer, and while I believe Citrine has taken that title from her, she's still really damn good. The benefits from her motes are almost never something you don't want. Her 2 and passive are amazing survivability, and Breach Surge is Breach Surge. What do you even say about that ability? Her 4 is a meme, but that's whatever. While I am ranking her in the same tier as Citrine, she is not a better support, and overall I actually find Citrine's entire kit to be a little bit stronger than Wisp's. That mainly is due to the fact that Breach Surge is a helmet though, kind of taking her down a notch. Wukong, like Titania, is an amazing speedrun frame and also the de facto best for spy missions, but besides that, I don't think Wukong's actually that good. Even during the clone AoE meta, it really never made sense to me why people played him, and with those changes being implemented for over a year now, his popularity does not click for me. Iron Staff is relatively good as an exalted melee now, but the clone and the rest of his kit have just kind of fell off with time. B tier. Zaku, another one of my favorite frames, but let's ignore my personal feelings, not that it really should matter. Grasp of Lock is a fantastic DPS tool, scaling with enemy level, something very coveted in Warframe. 2 massive areas of AoE armor strip, that's also very powerful, and with their 4th pausing all of their kit, being great for looting and more damage, Zaku is just really good. They're also the first non-binary Warframe, which is awesome. S tier. Ureli gets a bad rep in the community because on release, she was really bad, but after all of these small direct and indirect buffs she has received, she's kind of a secondary powerhouse. Sure, Marolina should be able to be modded, and it's pretty annoying, but functions like a buffed version of Nezha's warding Halo. Aquablades, especially with the augment, are quite good, and her 1 and 4 give damage vulnerability, cold procs for more damage, grouping. It's a solid kit, and not to mention that passive. What a great passive. A-. Last but far from least is Zephyr. Being what I believe is the best frame for new players, Zephyr is a crazy strong frame, more deserving of S tier than most. Tornadoes function quite uniquely and very powerfully, with her 1 being great movement or even an infinitely scaling nuke with the augment. Her 2 is also great grouping, and Turbulence is survivability rivaled only by Revenant. Zephyr's a beast. S tier. Yo, we finished the list. That took a while, but I hope you guys enjoyed. This is a lot shorter than last year's list, mainly because there's not a lot of negative space and me just listing off pointless stuff because it was a live stream VOD. Do remember at the end of the day, this is my opinion. I'm trying to be as objective as possible, but obviously some subjectivity is within the list. And as I said in the intro, just because your favorite frame or frames not ranking where you think they do is fine. And I invite you to present your case within the comments nicely. These are my takes, don't take them to heart. All this serves to do is give someone a quick rating of a frame that they may be interested in. So thank you for watching, and before you go, a quick reminder that by scanning my QR code currently on screen, you can grab yourself 2 epic champions in raid, and make sure to join my clan, Order of Ki. I hope to see some of you guys online soon, and a massive thank you to Raid for sponsoring this video. And even bigger thanks to all of my supporters on YouTube and Patreon for helping me continue to do what I do. Thank you to Aware, The Bad Monk, Scotty Knows, Sage, Intellectual, 3000, Eridus, Boogie, Cozy, Aqua, and Lexeli. I hope this video was informative and helpful, and I will see all of you guys tomorrow actually. Peace!